What is up, Pokemon people? This is Michael Sean coming at you with another video about the 2020 to 2021 rotation. We were not sure if it was going to happen because of the corona pandemic. However, Pokemon has gone and announced a few days ago that we will indeed be having a rotation in August. So yesterday I brought you the top 10 cards we'll miss from Ultra Prism. Today we are talking about the top 10 cards we'll miss from Forbidden Light. So let's go ahead and get cracking. Like I said, this is the 2020 to 2021 rotation. We will be going to Team Up, and so this is the second in a series of videos about the top 10 cards we'll be missing from each of the sets that are rotating. And this is obviously very important information for those of you guys that have been playing in this format and now will need to plan for the next format. So let's go ahead and jump right in. First, we have a honorable mention that is Unit Energy FDF that would be Fighting, Darkness, and Fairy. The reason why I had this as an honorable mention is because it really hasn't seen play in any decks. However, having the unit energies is something that is always super helpful. It's kind of one of those things that you always keep in the back of your mind when building decks, because if you have a deck that uses Fairy, Fighting, and Darkness attackers, obviously you're going to want to include this card, especially with Guzma and Hala in the format. Another honorable mention is YVELTÁL GX. This is a fantastic card because of its GX move for 1 Darkness Energy, Doom Count GX. If your opponent's active Pokemon has exactly 4 damage counters on it, it is KO'd. The thing why this card did not make it into the top 10 for me was because it's really only good in one deck in Standard, and that is Obstagoon. And so I don't think that it's top 10 worthy, but it is an amazing card, and with Obstagoon being mostly from Sword and Shield, it kind of sucks that they're losing their GX attack of choice so early in the deck's life. Moving on to another honorable mention, we have Ultra NECROZMA GX. This was kind of like the premier GX Pokemon that came out of Forbidden Light. It is really the attack that's so good here for 1 Psychic and 1 Metal. We have Photon Geyser, which does 20, plus you discard all basic Psychic energy from this. It does 80 more damage for each card discarded that way. And so the idea here was to get to 1 Metal energy and then accelerate energy with something like Malamar to get as many Psychics as you can onto here and take massive KOs. It's very, very good. However, Power Creep really hit this card quite a bit. It was a card that was kind of hyped up that it could beat tag teams and stuff like that when they first got released, and that's still definitely true, but it's not as good as a lot of other options that we have, and therefore it only really sees play in decks like Malamar, primarily in the Malamew build of that. So this is just an honorable mention for just not being a very widely played card, but it is still pretty good. All right, another honorable mention is Greninja GX. We have 2 things here to talk about. First, the ability Shuriken Flurry. When you evolve this from your hand, you may put 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Very, very good ability there. And then its attack for a water double colorless. You got Haze Slash 110. You may shuffle this and all cards attached to it into your deck. The reason why this is an honorable mention is because it's a fantastic card. Super, super cool. Saw some play throughout its lifespan in different decks, including like a Water Mew Mew box that would use Haze Slash, or just on its own as Greninja. However, it has not seen play in a while. I still like this card. I thought it was worth mentioning, but it hasn't been in a deck in a while, so it's just an honorable mention. All right, moving on to number 10, we have Baby BUZZWOLE, as many people have come to know him as. We're really looking at this Sledgehammer attack. It is for 1 fighting, 30, plus if your opponent has exactly 4 prize cards remaining, this attack does 90 more damage. That's pretty crazy, basically for 1 fighting energy in, 1 time for the game. You're going to be doing 120 damage. Now, that is an important number because Pikarom has 240 HP with fighting weakness. So BUZZWOLE is a fantastic counter card 2 Pikarom. It is a fantastic counter card really to a lot of things because a lot of things have counter weakness. This is certainly going to be something that we're going to miss when we lose it, especially if you're a fighting person. So moving on to number 9, we have Judge. Judge is number 9. It does each player shuffles their hand into their deck and draws 4. Super good card on its own. However, in Sword and Shield, we got Marnie, which is honestly, in almost every way, just a straight upgrade where each player puts their hand on the bottom of their deck, and then you draw 5, your opponent draws 4. Most of the time, that's just going to be a better Judge, and so it's down here at number 9. But it is worth mentioning that this card is going away because it did see pretty wide play. Moving on to number 8, we have DIANCIE Prism Star. This is a fantastic Prism Star card. It has this ability, Princess's Cheers. Your fighting Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active. This card's a no-brainer, right? Like, every fighting deck wants to be playing this card. The fighting archetype will certainly be hurt without having DIANCIE in format, and it's just a great card, and that's our number 8. Moving to number 7, we have Lysandre Labs. Lysandre Labs just turns off Pokemon tools. Yours and your opponent's no tools when Lysandre Labs is out. Really great card, saw a lot of play. It was kind of like the go-to stadium for a little while if you didn't have another stadium. Now, since we've gotten Chaotic Swell in Cosmic Eclipse, Chaotic Swell has become the go-to stadium over Lysandre Labs, but it is still worth mentioning that Lysandre Labs was a great addition to our format, and we are no longer going to have it when rotation hits. Moving on to number 6, we have Naganadel GX, or as I like to call him, Naganoodle GX. The big thing here is actually the GX move for 3 colors energy. Both players shuffle their prize cards into their decks, then places the top 3 cards down as their new prize cards. That's a really interesting GX move, and it's seen play in a lot of decks, like a lot of decks. It doesn't seem like the type of thing that would see play in tons of decks, but it does. We're talking about big Blounds, right? Blacephalon GX played this in several of its lists. We're talking about the whole archetype of checkmate decks is that you Stinger GX and then you knock out a tag team for the whole game. And so that's in there. Some Mew Mew lists play it. It's just a great card that has seen a lot of play with this really interesting thing that is, I don't think a ton of people were really hyped about that GX attack. Like, it's fine, but a lot of people weren't hyped about it when it came out. They were more talking about this card for Beast Raid, which really incidentally didn't see as much play as we thought that it might have. So we're going to be losing Stinger GX, which is definitely something that's worth mentioning, and that's why it comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, we have Volcanion Prism Star, and this is really in here for the ability Jet Geyser. Once per turn, you can discard a water energy, and if you do, it forces your opponent to switch their active Pokemon. This is really good because this, we've had several times in our format since Ultra Prism has been legal that we haven't really had the greatest gust options. In Volcanion, it's not true gust because your opponent gets to switch the Pokemon, meaning they get to choose which Pokemon now becomes active. But it's really good, and it's something that a lot of other archetypes didn't have access to. I remember playing Volcanion Prism Star in Nagquag, which is probably the deck that it's seen the most amount of play in, but really any water deck, or any deck that plays water energy for that matter, can take advantage of Volcanion Prism Star, and its attack is really not that bad either. It is not a bad attack, especially when you have Nagquag to move all the energy around. So Volcanion Prism Star comes in right at number 5, and I think it's well deserving of its spot. Moving to number 4, we have Metal Frying Pan. This is a card that I would not necessarily have expected to show up on a list like this until we got Sword and Shield, and Metal became the dominant type. This says this Metal Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks, and it has no weakness. The funny thing is, most Metal cards are weak to Fire, and Fire was the dominant typing until Metal was the dominant typing, which is really interesting. So we have still a lot of really strong Fire decks at the same time that we have all these really strong Metal decks, and the way that Metal decks were overcoming Fire decks was with Metal Frying Pans. I'm actually really interested to see how the loss of this card affects the format, because I think we might be able to see a resurgence in Fire-type decks all because this card is leaving the format. If you are a Zacian player or another metal deck kind of thing, this is definitely a card that is going to hurt your decks. So definitely something to start considering how we're going to build around. That's why this comes in at number 4. And if that's our number 4, our number 3 have to be amazing, because this card is amazing and it severely affects our format. Moving to number 3, we have Ultra Beast Stuff. Ultra Beast were something that were introduced in Sun and Moon, and therefore they got a lot of support in the Sun and Moon set, and a lot of that support is rotating here with Ultra Prism and Forbidden Light. And so the 3 cards that we really need to talk about here are Beast Energy, Ultra Spaced, and Beast Ring. Beast Energy is a special energy Prism Star card that when you attach it to an Ultra Beast, it's like a rainbow energy with no downside. You just get any type of energy. And it's like a choice band, if you guys remember playing with that card. It does. This card does 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Fantastic card in stuff like Ultra NECROZMA, like Blacephalon, like Checkmate stuff. Tons and tons of applications of this card. Anything that wants to be attacking with Ultra Beasts is definitely going to play this card. Also, we have Ultra Space. Ultra Space is a fantastic card that just lets you search your deck once per turn for an Ultra Beast. That is a significant advantage that Ultra Beast decks have going for them. Think stuff like Baby Blacephalon, Big Blacephalon, where you're playing all these different Naganadels and stuff. Like, this card is amazing. It's really, really good. And Ultra Beasts are really going to struggle with the loss of Ultra Space. But perhaps the biggest loss as far as Ultra Beasts are concerned is Beast Ring, that when your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prize cards remaining, you get to search your deck for 2 basic energy cards and attach them to one of your Ultra Beasts. A lot of Ultra Beasts have these really strong but sometimes energy-hungry attacks on them, or they do extra things if there's more energy. And so you really want as much energy as you possibly can have on your Ultra Beast. And Beast Ring is the reason why stuff like Ultra NECROZMA and Blacephalon were so dominant in their respective formats, because Beast Ring just allowed you to accelerate so much energy, more energy than any other archetype had to accelerate. And so losing Beast Ring is going to be pretty serious. And instead of trying to figure out where exactly all these cards fit into the spectrum, we just decided to lump them all into number 3 with Ultra Beast Stuff. Coming in at number 2, we have Malamar. And I think a lot of people will probably put this at their number 1 slot just because Malamar has been an archetype since the card came out. Malamar is amazing. It has this ability, Psychic Recharge. Once during your turn, you may attach a Psychic Energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. That's huge. I mean, there's so many different versions of Malamar out there, but the fact that you can have something knocked out and then be accelerating, like usually at least 2 energies to it. And then we got this card in Lost Thunder, Giratina, which just comes back from the discard pile. So you could play the entire game with 2 Malamars and a Giratina, and you can win that way. This card is ridiculous. Malamar is so good. It started really being a partner to Ultra NECROZMA when it first came out in this set, but then Giratina came out, and it started being more of a non-GX heavy deck. And then we got stuff like Solgaleo and Lunala that made it even better. We got Mewtwo and Mew, which kind of opened up a new way to play this card. There's so many applications that this card has found. It is one of the best cards in the game, and a lot of people have latched onto the Malamar archetype, and I'm actually the thing I'm most curious with this card is what those people are going to play, because the people that played Malamar, they've been playing Malamar since Ultra Prism, and they don't play anything else because they love the deck so much. And I got to give it to them. It is a really fun deck to play. I am currently playing it online right now, and it's fun to play. It tends to beat a lot of the other decks that I tend to take to tournaments, which means that it's kind of been a thorn in my side personally. But it's a great archetype, super good. Everybody keeps, saying, oh, like this is the last tournament for Malamar, whatever, and then it just never went out. I mean, Malamar has been relevant since the day it would have rotated, and if we were able to play tournaments in Rebel Clash, Malamar would have found new partners in stuff like Malamar V and Dragapult V. So, yeah, this card's amazing. Super, super good. And if this is number 2, number 1 has got to be good. And so let's go ahead and take a look. Here's number 1. It is Mysterious Treasure. Mysterious Treasure, I think, is even better than Malamar just because it has that extra level of playability. This card is broken for Psychic and Dragon decks. Discard a card from hand and then search for a Psychic and or Dragon Pokemon and add it to hand. This thing is Ultra Ball, but you discard one less card, and it only works for Psychic and Dragon. But that's okay, because generally when you're playing a Psychic deck, especially with Malamar, almost all your Pokemon, if not every single one of your Pokemon, are Psychic. And then there's tons of good Dragon Pokemon that utilize Psychic energy, like Ultra Necrozma. And so what we have is we have this card that just becomes like such an efficient engine for these decks that honestly, this card is one of the biggest reasons why that archetype has become so dominant. This card's really going to hurt to lose. I am really kind of upset that this is leaving. I am a Mew Mew player primarily for this format that we've been in and last format. And Mysterious Treasure is a great card in Mew Mew too, because there's dragons that you play and there's Psychic Pokemon, obviously, with Mewtwo and Mew GX. But there's so much potential with this card. There has been so much play centered around this card. We are not going to enjoy seeing this card leave because it's some of the best Pokemon search we've ever had in the Pokemon trading card game. And so that is my number one pick for the card that we will miss the most when Forbidden Light rotates. But now is the time where you guys get to tell me what cards you're going to be missing for the most. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. I want you guys to comment with any cards that I may have left off this list that you are like, why did you leave this off? Please tell us why. Or if you disagree with my top 10, feel free to give your own top 10 or your own top 3 or whatever you want to do in the comment section. I would love to hear you guys talking about some of that stuff. And here's a little extra thing. If you are a Malamar player, or if you have been a Malamar player, I'm curious to know which deck you're planning on pivoting to post-rotation. So let me know in the comments if you're a Malamar player. Do your little crying face emoji, and then tell me what decks you're planning on picking up now that Malamar is going to be toast in August. But I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say, and I'm also really excited to continue taking a look at some of the cards that we'll be looking for. Like I said in previous videos, including earlier in this video, we will be posting one of these every day until we get to the end of the sets. And so definitely make sure that you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications so that you don't miss any of the content coming out this week. I think it'll be something that you'll want to follow. All right. So I will see you guys later. And until I do, be sure to keep doing your Pokemon thing.